If you think everything has suddenly gotten too expensive, imagine being a Roman citizen watching bread prices increase not double, not triple, but over 1,000 times. Believe it or not, this actually happened, and it destroyed the most powerful empire on earth. You see, the government secretly replaced silver in coins with copper, painted it silver, and hoped nobody would notice. And yet, people noticed. But here's the even scarier part. Many say that the United States is doing the exact same thing, just digitally. Indeed, the Federal Reserve printed more money in 2020 alone than existed for America's first 200 years. That's not normal economic growth, that's currency destruction, and it's happening faster to America than it even did to Rome. In 268 AD, Roman soldiers across the empire discovered their coins were dissolving. The silver coating on their supposedly silver antoninianus coins was washing off in vinegar, revealing copper cores underneath. These soldiers had been paid in what they thought was solid currency, only to find they held painted metal worth a fraction of its stated value. The antoninianus had been introduced 53 years earlier by Emperor Caracalla as a masterstroke of economic innovation. This new coin was declared worth 2 denarii, the empire's standard silver denomination, but contained only 1.5 times the silver content. The Roman government had effectively created 25% profit from thin air. What started as clever fiscal policy became a disaster that would help topple the greatest empire on earth. For over 2 centuries, Rome's economic dominance had rested on the reliability of the silver denarius. First minted around 211 BC, the denarius contained nearly pure silver and was accepted from Britain to Persia. Roman soldiers earned their pay in it, merchants demanded it for goods, and ordinary citizens stored their wealth in it. The coin represented something more than purchasing power. It embodied trust in Roman stability, Roman power, and Roman permanence. When you held a denarius, you held a piece of the empire itself. But maintaining an empire spanning 3 continents required astronomical expenses. Legions needed payment, infrastructure demanded investment, and Rome's borders required constant defense against Germanic tribes, Parthians, and internal rebellions. Traditional taxation could only extract so much before triggering revolt. So emperors turned to the ancient trick of currency debasement, reducing silver content while maintaining the coin's face value. The numbers reveal a spectacular decline. Under Augustus at the empire's dawn, the denarius contained 95% silver. By Emperor Philip the Arab in 244 AD, silver content had dropped to 47%. When Gallienus ruled in 268 AD, the antoninianus contained less than 5% silver. The empire's premier currency had devolved into bronze tokens with silver paint. Citizens could see the fraud, feel the lighter weight, and watch the silver coating flake off in their hands. Modern governments execute the same theft through different mechanisms. Since 1971, when President Nixon severed the dollar's link to gold, the Federal Reserve has expanded the money supply without any metallic constraints. They create dollars electronically, purchasing bonds with currency that exists only as database entries. Between 2008 and 2022, the Fed's balance sheet exploded from $800 billion to $9 trillion. Rome at least had to mine copper and apply silver coating. We accomplished debasement with keystrokes. The Roman centurion discovering his worthless coins in 268 AD faced the same reality as someone today watching their savings evaporate through inflation. The mechanisms evolved, but the theft remains identical. Governments throughout history discover they can fund themselves by destroying their currency's value. Rome's story shows where this path leads. A Roman soldier under Augustus earned 225 denarii per year, enough to support a family and retire comfortably. By the reign of Caracalla in 215 AD, military pay had tripled to 675 denarii annually. On paper, soldiers had never been wealthier. In reality, they could barely afford bread. The mathematics of debasement destroyed the illusion of prosperity. Augustus's denarii contained 95% silver, making that 225 denarii salary worth substantial purchasing power. Caracalla's denarii contained less than 50% silver, meaning soldiers received more coins of drastically diminished value. Tripling the number meant nothing when each coin bought less than half what it once did. This phenomenon, where nominal wages rise while real purchasing power falls, would plague every subsequent currency crisis in history. The destruction appeared first in grain prices. Rome's most essential commodity. A modius of wheat costing 1 denarius in 200 AD commanded 20 denarii by 270 AD. By 314 AD, that same measure of grain cost 1,000 denarii. Within a single human lifetime, Romans experienced a 1,000-fold price increase. Farmers abandoned their fields rather than accept payment in worthless coins. Historical records indicate between 1/3 and 1/2 of arable land went uncultivated during the crisis. The empire was literally starving itself through monetary policy. When Constantine introduced his gold solidus in 312 AD to restore stability, the exchange rate revealed the catastrophe's scope. 1 gold solidus traded for 275,000 old denarii. The currency that built Rome had become worthless paper, or in this case, worthless metal. Every Roman who had saved denarii for retirement, stored them for their children, or accepted them as payment had been robbed by their own government. The crisis peaked during what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. Between 235 and 284 AD, Rome endured 50 years of chaos. The empire saw 26 emperors in 50 years, most dying violent deaths. Plagues devastated the population while barbarian invasions pressed every frontier. Behind each catastrophe lurked the same poison: worthless money. Soldiers mutinied when their pay couldn't buy food. Trade networks collapsed when merchants refused debased coins. Tax collection became predatory as the government desperately sought anything of real value. Diocletian's edict on maximum prices in 301 AD attempted to stop the bleeding through pure authoritarianism. The edict fixed prices for over 1,000 goods and services, from grain to haircuts. Violation meant death. Markets immediately went underground, official trade ceased, and the edict failed completely. The lesson was clear. Governments cannot legislate value into worthless currency. Today's parallels disturb anyone paying attention. The median American house cost $30,000 in 1970, requiring 2.5 years of median income. That same house now costs $400,000, demanding 8 years of median income. Houses didn't become 3 times better. Dollars became that much worse. We're living through Rome's debasement at triple speed. The Federal Reserve created more money in 2020 alone than existed during America's first 200 years. This fact deserves repeating. More dollars appeared in 12 months than had been created between 1776 and 1976. Rome took 3 centuries to destroy the denarius through debasement. We're accomplishing the same destruction in decades. When Nixon closed the gold window in August 1971, he claimed the measure was temporary. The dollar would float freely for a brief period while international monetary agreements were renegotiated. 54 years later, we're still waiting for that temporary period to end. Since that date, the dollar has lost 87% of its purchasing power. $1 from 1971 now requires $8 to match its buying power. Your parents remember 25-cent hamburgers and $3 movie tickets because that's what money actually bought when currency had value. The erosion happened gradually enough that each generation accepted it as normal, but the pace accelerated dramatically after 2008's financial crisis. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet grew from $800 billion to $9 trillion between 2008 and 2022. Central banks worldwide printed approximately $20 trillion in new currency during this period. They called it quantitative easing, asset purchases, and monetary stimulus. Rome called it coin debasement. The terminology became more sophisticated, but the theft remained identical. Governments discovered they could fund themselves without raising taxes by simply creating more currency units. The results manifest everywhere if you know where to look. Global debt reached $307 trillion in 2023, up from $3 trillion in the 1970s. The economy grew during those decades, but not 100-fold. The explosion represents pure monetary expansion, currencies racing toward worthlessness. Asset prices tell the real story of debasement. The stock market's rise from 1,000 points in 1970 to 40,000 today doesn't reflect 40 times more prosperity. It reflects a currency losing value so rapidly that anyone holding dollars rather than assets gets destroyed. Between 2008 and 2023, wealthy investors holding stocks gained 87% after adjusting for inflation. Workers keeping savings in banks lost 45% of their purchasing power. The wealth didn't disappear. It transferred from savers to asset holders, from workers to owners, from people trusting currency to people understanding debasement. Weimar Germany showed how this process ends. After World War I, Germany printed marks to pay war reparations, thinking paper could cover real debts. By November 1923, one American dollar equaled 4,200 billion German marks. People burned money for heat because wheelbarrows of cash couldn't buy firewood. Argentina demonstrates the pattern continues today. Their peso lost 99% of its value between 2000 and 2024. Citizens spend paychecks immediately because holding currency means watching it evaporate. Governments worldwide are racing down the same path Rome traveled. They've just gotten better at hiding it. Every empire that debased its currency believed it was different. Rome thought its military might would sustain confidence in degraded denarii. France's revolutionary government insisted their assignats had value because they were backed by confiscated church lands. Germany believed the mark would recover once war reparations ended. Each was wrong, and the pattern never changes. Governments facing financial pressure choose the hidden tax of debasement over the visible pain of spending cuts or tax increases. Citizens slowly realize their money is becoming worthless, first gradually, then suddenly. By the time most people understand what's happening, the wealth transfer is complete. The winners and losers of currency collapse follow predictable patterns. Those holding currency and fixed incomes get destroyed first. Retirees watching 40 years of savings buy groceries for 6 months. Workers seeing wages rise slower than prices. Savers discovering their prudence was actually foolishness. These people followed conventional wisdom, trusted government money, and got robbed for their faith. The survivors own real assets that maintain value when currency fails. Land still grows food when money becomes worthless. Businesses still produce goods regardless of what we call the medium of exchange. Commodities retain inherent value whether priced in denarii, dollars, or seashells. Skills and productive capacity matter more than nominal prices. The Romans, who converted to land ownership before the crisis, kept their wealth. Those holding denarii lost everything. The winners understand the game early and position themselves accordingly. They borrow in depreciating currency to buy appreciating assets. They recognize that owing $100,000 on a house becomes trivial when currency collapses. The German industrialists who borrowed marks to buy factories in 1920 paid back their loans with worthless paper while keeping productive assets. The pattern repeats because human nature doesn't change. Central banks today publish academic papers about financial repression, their euphemism for keeping interest rates below inflation. They openly discuss using currency debasement to reduce government debt burdens. The Federal Reserve calls it managing expectations and maintaining price stability. Rome's emperors would recognize the strategy immediately. The technology evolved from physically diluting silver to digitally creating dollars, but the underlying theft remains constant. Marcus Aurelius, remembered as Rome's philosopher-emperor, still debased the currency by 25% to fund his campaigns. Even the best leaders choose inflation over unpopularity. Modern politicians face the same incentives and make the same choice. They'll destroy the currency before admitting the government is broke. The denarius took 300 years to become worthless. The German mark collapsed in less than 5 years. The dollar has lost most of its value in 50 years, and the pace accelerates. Each iteration of currency debasement happens faster than the last because governments have become more efficient at money creation. What required mining and minting now happens instantly through computer entries. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes with increasing tempo. And now, we'd like to see you in the comments. Do you believe that America's situation is the same as Rome's right before it fell, or did this video get it wrong? We look forward to hearing your thoughts below, and thanks for joining us for another episode.